Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Today we are joined by the voice of the Las Vegas food and restaurant scene since 1995. Welcome, John Curtas.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to be here.
Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street.
We're sitting right on the corner of Main Street.
Ah, you get it. You
got the name right before we even started. You're a genius.
Yes.
There we are on the corner of Main Street in Oscar's Steakhouse. It's. Let me tell you, John. I wasn't going to tell the story, but I guess I will. It's very nice that we allowed you to come back to Oscar's Steakhouse to do a podcast live from here after your first review of the steakhouse 11 years ago.
Well, it's a much better steakhouse.
Yes, and last month you gave us a nice piece of feedback, so we'll take it. That's why we invited you back.
Best burger.
The best burger, not just a nice burger, the best burger.
Best burger, exactly.
I think it's the best burger in town. I mean, it punches all my buttons in a good way.
What do you like about it?
What do I like about the burger? Well, I forgot what the name of it. What do you call it on the menu? It's just the burger?
I think it's just the burger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a double patty, which is that kind of echoes the in and out. It's sort of, to me, it straddles the line between a gourmet, high-end, highfalutin gourmet steakhouse burger and a drive-in burger, and the classic California double.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good meat, but better meat than you get in a drive-in restaurant like an In-N-Out.
Yes.
And better buns. Great. He does that sauce. He basically does the secret sauce of McDonald's, but Ben Jenkins does it better.
He does.
He does a better sauce.
For anyone that doesn't know, Ben Jenkins is the chef of
the
Oscar's, been with us about 2 years and transformed the restaurant into what it is today, which is a fantastic
It's a powerhouse now.
It sure is. And so, John, I wanted to ask you, because we're jumping ahead of ourselves, talking about burgers already, such detail, but 1995, you've been doing this a long time. One, how do you become a food critic? How did you get involved in the Las Vegas food scene? And secondly, and maybe for my own education, but for others as well, what is a food critic? Do you just eat at a lot of restaurants and selling your food? Because otherwise, a lot of people would be food critics.
Well, we're an endangered species these days.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll try to be brief on my background. What I like to say about my beginnings is that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Okay.
And in 1994, there was literally nobody writing about food from any kind of objective/subjective standpoint in this town. The Las Vegas Sun at the time had a food columnist, but I'm not going to go into what they were. They were pretty much just kind of an advertorial for whatever places they liked. And I looked at the landscape and I saw that there was going to be this huge revolution. I mean, Wolfgang Puck had just come to town, who'd really reset the dining paradigm here. He opened in December of 1992. So about 1993, I mean, I had been what they now call a foodie. Well, I had been that for a good 15, 20 years. And I looked around. Nobody was writing about it. So I started going around to the major media outlets and asking if they were interested. And everybody said pass, except KNPR, Nevada Public Radio. And through a couple of trial runs, they put me on. And then that launched me, and I was on KNPR as their food for thought commentator for 15 years.
That's in 1995.
That's in October 95 is when I started. And this is the funny part.
Was there any restaurants to review here?
Well, not then. It was just starting, okay,
Right.
and I think I was prescient in that I saw that it was just starting. I had I'll back up to that in a second, but I had the landscape to myself for 6 years, right. Even after everything happened with the Bellagio and Mandalay Bay and Venetian. There was no other food writer in town from '95 to like 2001, and back then in '95, Puck had made a big splash with Spago, and the big news
was that Caesar's original.
The original Caesar, right in the Forum Shops. Yep. And the big news in 94, 95 was MGM, because they had a fellow who never gets enough credit named Gamal Aziz. He was the food and beverage director at the MGM. And everybody talks about Wynn, and Steve Wynn, give the guy his due. He really did reset a lot of things and really promote us into the international culinary stage. But Gamal Aziz brought in Charlie Trotter Miller from, I can't remember his first name, Miller from Santa Fe, and Emeril Lagasse. And those three suddenly made MGM a powerhouse on the gastronomic scene,
Right.
along with Puck. And that's what I was writing about in 1994 and 1995.
So is it really just about eating at all these places? Like, what makes you a good food critic? Is it your palate? Is it your use of the language to describe it? What makes a good food critic? Because what's interesting about Las Vegas, and correct me if I'm wrong here, there's sort of worldwide or international food critics around the country, maybe on San Francisco, New York. Other than yourself, has anybody really been doing it here in Las Vegas at that level?
Well, yeah, we had Max Jacobson, who came to the Las Vegas Sun in 2001, and Max had a lot of chops. He was had been writing for the Los Angeles Times, and he wrote, and then we wrote a book. The original Eating Las Vegas book was published in the first one was 2011. Max was my co-author then, along with Al Mancini. But then Max met with a terrible accident back in 2013. He got hit by a car crossing the street. And so
That's terrible.
And that was terrible. And it so happened that around 2009, when the social media world took off, we'll get back to being a food critic in a second. The social media sort of eclipsed the food writing thing.
The foodies.
Nobody, the foodies, the Instagrammers, the kids, everything's now is an Instagram feed or a video or a TikTok or something of this, of people pulling pizza side by side, or look at this great burger I'm cutting into. Nobody, well, maybe my generation still wants to read 500 or 1,000 words of a description of a restaurant. But the world has sort of passed me by. So I'm kind of a dinosaur, and I know it, okay?
Well, I give you credit that you did open a TikTok account.
I did open a TikTok.
That's impressive. For a dinosaur,
TikToks.
that's impressive.
Yeah, for a guy my age. but to get back to your original question, what makes a critic? Back in the day, I think you don't just have a palate to begin with. You have to develop it. It takes a long time. Nowadays, you have all kinds of bloggers and podcasters who go, I'm a foodie, I'm a critic. I mean, because they just want to be. But back in those days, you had to cook a lot, travel a lot, read a lot. These were essential. I mean, I didn't feel right about writing about Italian food or French food or Japanese food till I had been to Japan and France and Italy.
Nice.
Now multiple times. These days, you ask your average Instagram influencer who's telling you about, this sushi is legit. It's great sushi. I mean, yeah, okay, because it's in your frame of reference it is. But, in the old days, you really had to know how to play an instrument versus, just putting on the way they make music these days. They put it on a computer and say they've written a hit song.
That's an interesting analogy.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I had to master the instrument, and that was my own palette. And you have to be a decent writer. And I think you have to travel and you have to read a lot. I mean, one thing when I meet these young people, I sound like an old guy talking now. I want to know, what do you read about food? I mean, it's not just about what you like. Because if you just say, I like this burger, okay, there's a lot of burgers I like, but, have you tasted hundreds of burgers? Have you read about meats and what goes into grinds and things like that? Have you read chef interviews?
Yeah.
Or are you just talking about what you like? And what you like isn't important. It's like, do you have a frame of reference about what's good? And that's what I think a real critic has to have.
That frame of reference is important. So you've also been a correspondent for Foodie Hub. You're the restaurant critic for multiple magazines. You're a member of the North American voting panel for Restaurant Magazine's 50 Best Restaurants in the World issue. And you've been the Las Vegas voting correspondent for the James Beard Foundation.
I have been. I am no longer. Let's to be perfectly frank.
What was that like? How do you vote for a James Beard?
James Beard thing was interesting because they threw me off. I mean, this is a whole interesting story all its own. Because I got a little defensive about the way they were treating Las Vegas, and I thought we were not getting our due. And I was on the voting panel for I think 5 or 6 years, and I started saying,
how many people are on the panel?
400. It's not that exclusive. There's a nominating. There's 400 writers. There's a nominating panel of 20, and I was kind of in line to be on that panel, but they just I was too much of a gadfly. So I was basically their Las Vegas correspondent, voting and nominating places from Las Vegas. And I got tired of seeing every year it would come out. This is back in the mid 2000s. It's all these Los Angeles and New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Chicago got screwed over and over again too back in those days. And I just thought it was a rigged election, and no matter how much we did, we couldn't get any credibility, even though we have some of the greatest chefs and restaurants in the world here, and they were treating us like we were Memphis, Tennessee. We're not Memphis, or we're not Tampa. Okay, right. And that's the way they were treating us. I thought it was unfair, and I said so too many times. They threw me off. That's the way it works.
So, but now, this year, Esther's Kitchen was awarded?
No, they weren't awarded. They got
James had it prior, didn't he?
They send out a list of nominations. Then they winnow it down once, and then they give the award.
Got it.
He got on the original list of nominations, which is usually a couple hundred different places. But
so how many restaurants get the actual award?
Every year, well, there's a bunch of categories. It's kind of like the Oscars, okay? There's 5 or 6 top awards, and there's maybe a couple dozen lesser awards. So in any year, maybe 40 or 50 restaurants get cited, but there's always, Restaurant of the Year, Chef of the Year, and then they have the regional Southwest Chef of the Year and Southwest Restaurant of the Year and Northwest. So there are all these different categories that you can get in. And I think James got nominated in the Southwest.
Got it.
But again, it's going to be very tough. And these days, I want to be really controversial. I don't know if a white male chef is going to move the needle anymore. And that's what James is. He's a very talented guy, and his restaurant is fantastic. But the James Beard has come out with this. We want to be more diverse.
So it's not like the Oscars.
They're all trying to do this, and I'm all for that. But it's going to put people on their back foot if you happen to just be a white male chef, because you're not going to get quite the interest.
You're starting perhaps at a disadvantage.
At a disadvantage, yes.
So is there somebody that you look to for when you travel? Is there a specific critic or somebody that you say, I take their advice?
I look to John Mariani, who still writes. He's in his 70s now, and he's still writing.
Okay.
I belong to a lot of chefs on their Instagram feeds. I look to where chefs are going.
So where the chefs are going and what they're doing.
There's not a lot. There's in Europe, there's some. Jay Rayner is a London critic who writes for, I think, the London Times, Rayner. I love to read his stuff because the Brits are cheeky and and people think, well, Jonathan, you know this. I mean, American chefs and restaurateurs get their pants in a bunch if you say my steak was overcooked. I mean, the British writers are vicious. Right. They're funny and they're vicious, and they will just go right after a restaurant or a chef and call them names and say that the sauce tasted like KY jelly and things like that. I mean, they just go nuts, and I mean, you got to have a thick hide to be a restaurant guy in London, England.
Yeah, you raise a good point. Do you ever feel bad giving a bad review? And there's a second follow-up question to this, which people have asked me to ask you once we announced that you were coming on our podcast. But firstly, let's start with, do you ever feel bad for a negative review?
Not if it's a big place. Not, the big hotels are fair game, and the big chefs are fair game. I don't, if Bobby Flay doesn't bring it, or even if the Plaza Hotel doesn't bring it. Yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of muscle behind these places. So they need to be on their game, and they're charging top prices. Mm-hmm. I would feel bad back in the day if I criticized a mom and pop, so much so that I kind of quit doing that after a while. The only people I got real negative on would be, I would call it fair game, big game. Mm-hmm. I don't want to pick on a little guy at this point. If I don't like a little restaurant in Las Vegas, mom and pop, Spring Mountain Road, whatever, I'll just I won't even put it on.
Pretend it never happened.
Yeah. I'll just eat it and just file it away and say I'm not going to talk about them at all.
All right, this is controversial. Does the whether it's comp or not affect your review?
No. I'm so far past that. I mean, it's a podcast, so I can be totally honest, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have been doing this now for 25, 26 years, and I've gotten so much free food. I mean, it's whether the food is comped or not doesn't matter at all to me. I can afford it.
Right.
If I had to pay for it, I always offer to pay. I have never, and there are an awful lot of critics in this town and other places who set up being hosted and these things. I have never done that. I mean, when I go into a restaurant, I offer to pay. Sometimes I don't get charged, but I always throw down the credit card first. And what I prefer, I'll get back to your question in a second. What I prefer is that they charge me, and if the chef wants to send out some freebies for me to try, that I think levels the playing field. But would that ever affect me? No, I'm way past that.
Right. And I agree with you, and I recognize that myself in my experiences with you. I just find it funny that whenever you write a very positive thing, someone will say, "Oh, well, you probably didn't have to pay for that," or you did. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, well, why would that necessarily change the opinion?
You get to a point where no, I mean, it doesn't matter what. I mean, I look at everything objectively. I mean, if I'm aware of the fact that, hey, I wasn't charged for this, and I say so in the review, that's something else you should look for in a lot of places. I always mention it. But no, I can't think of a time in the last 15 years, maybe when I was starting out, I would tell my wife, boy, that whole meal was comped. I feel bad saying anything bad about it. But I got past that pretty fast. You've got to have your own kind of tough hide to do this thing. And you can't buy me off. You could probably buy me off with some really, really expensive wines, but they cost so much money.
Good to know. Noted.
No restaurateur is ever going to throw out that Burgundy at me and say, "Okay, now give me a good review."
Right. Well, listen, and the thing with the reviews is, especially today, and we talked about it before, but with social media, you don't have to be you can have the palate of an ox, but still have a social media following whereby people are listening to you and. Yeah. You can definitely make or break restaurants with that kind of
all you have to
influence.
do is be cute. I mean, hopefully female and good looking.
Well, but there's also males with good Twitter or Instagram followings that maybe aren't qualified to give that, but everybody has an opinion.
What these people are doing with Instagram is trying to become pitchmen. It's really about advertising. I mean, and that's what a lot of this has all become. That's what food writers, I mean, to call out people, that's what our review journal has become. That's what Eater Las Vegas is. They're just advertising platforms now. And when you become an Instagram phenomenon because you're doing this, in essence, what you're doing is just advertising. You're not a journalist. You're not writing from any detached sense of perspective. You're just saying, I'm doing this so I can sell a product or help somebody else sell a product. And that's what food writing has become. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. What I really wanted to get your opinion on today and talk about was a lot about downtown Las Vegas, and that I've probably known you 14 years now. And I remember inviting you here back when we were trying to put, we had the Omelette House here at the Plaza, we had Firefly here at the Plaza, and there's definitely a movement that restaurants and good food, along with art, is what defines an area, in especially up-and-coming areas across America. Good street art or art galleries and good food and coffee can help grow an area. What has been your experience in downtown Las Vegas and the evolution of the dining scene down here?
Well, it's better than ever. I mean, thanks to the Plaza, and thanks to Circa, thanks to James Trees down on Main Street.
I mean, I see a Publicus getting coffee and pastries.
I mean, there are compared to where. My office was down here. I've been working down here now for 25 years, really. And there was no place to eat here 10 years ago, back in 08, 09. Carson Kitchen came on board, I think, in 2014, and I think it really reset everybody's idea.
We did Latai, they're our tenants, in 2011.
Okay, 2011 on East Fremont.
Yeah.
The whole East Fremont thing kind of started about 10 years ago.
Right. Yep.
And that really began the revolution. So I'm very bullish on downtown now, where 15 years ago I was very bearish on it.
Right.
But I still think we have a long way to go. I think Fremont Street, for all of its traffic, still appeals to what I call the nickel beer crowd, and you're fighting against the tide to try to sell these people anything more than cheap stuff.
Yeah, I told the story about the crepes. And
like all over Paris, France.
Yeah,
right?
coming from England, there was a very famous crepe stand that we used to go to once or twice a week. And so I set up a nice thing in the Las Vegas club, which was where Circa is now, and we're selling out the window. And the first couple of people come by, and they're like, "What is this?" I said, "A crepe." And they're like, "What's a creepy?" And I said, a crepe. They're like, no, creepy. So after like the third or fourth person's calling it a creepy, and they didn't know what it was, someone said, "What is this?" And I said, "It's a quesadilla." And they're like, I'll take it. So that's what you're trying to sell out there.
Yeah. It's so. I mean, I'm going to criticize not the Plaza or Circa or a lot of the operators here, but it's interesting to me that the food scene in downtown Las Vegas has pretty much abandoned the Fremont Street idea, which has been the main engine down here now for like 75, 80 years, and it's all happening around it, really. I mean, starting with East Fremont and now going down to Main Street Arts District. So it's like the chefs and the restaurateurs have sort of caught on that you can't make a lot of money here unless you're going to do hot dogs and quesadillas. It's a wonder to me the food is as good as it is in your hotels. Okay, because Oscar's to me, it's a first-class steakhouse. So Circa's got a number of venues that are pitched pretty high in terms of gastronomic ambition, and I'm just impressed that you're bringing people along now, and that I didn't think could have happened 10 years ago.
I mean, from a steak perspective, there's Oscar's, there's also Andiamo, there's the one at Golden Nugget is Vic and Anthony's. There's some good options down here now with Barry's now across the street. So I mean, we are from a steak perspective, and then of course in downtown in general, there's plenty of good coffee and pizza. Yeah, I mean, we definitely don't need any more of those two things.
We don't, and it's just like we don't need any more Vietnamese noodle bars on Spring Mountain Road. I tell this, and I love Vietnamese people, and I love pho. But if I see one more noodle bar, I'm going to just put a gun in my head.
What do you think we do need more of downtown?
Outdoor dining would be great. A French bistro. I don't think it would work on Fremont Street, but it might work around
could be
here.
Arts District, could be further down East Fremont.
Just a little casual restaurants where people, I think Esther's Kitchen's trying to do this. I mean, they're open for lunch and dinner. It's a drop-in, drop-out kind of place. It's not a big deal meal restaurant. I mean, all the steakhouses you mentioned, Jonathan, are great, but Andiamo, Oscar's, these are big deal meal restaurants.
Right.
Not big deal meal restaurants where you can go in and spend $40 or you can go in and spend $140 if you want to. And that's what I'd like to see more of. A creperie.
I'll tell you what, we're very lucky is I went for dinner the other night to probably the fourth time in 2 weeks to You or Me Sushi.
Excellent.
That is impressive.
I just wrote about it on my website, my Eating Las Vegas website. It blew me away how good it was.
Yeah, the quality there. We've not had good sushi in downtown.
Right.
Nowhere.
Yeah. We won't name them, but there's one or two places that have opened that they're just. I call it shopping mall sushi.
Okay.
I mean, it's for the California roll crowd. Yes, but You or Me Sushi is a way cut above that stuff. Yes.
Yeah, very impressive. So. I mean, I think the downtown scene has come a long way from where we were when you and I started talking about downtown many, many years ago, and to see the evolution. I think even just some of the chefs that are willing to come down here now and take a stab at downtown, it's impressive.
What do you think? Where do you think it needs? I mean, you're right in the middle of it here. I mean, if you could wave your wand, besides a creperie. Okay.
I mean, Lisa, you're the young crowd.
Okay, somebody who doesn't have gray hair.
Well, there might be one or two.
Yeah.
I know you said no noodle bars, but I think something with noodles, either Italian, not so much.
Well, he said Spring Mountain, not downtown.
Yeah, noodles. A sort of deli, like a Jewish deli. I would love that.
Well, Saginaw's is very good across the street. It is good. It's expensive but good. But Lisa, you're right. I'll agree with you about it. A ramen bar down here would kill it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Or one or two places like Manta and some of these Sapporo down on Spring Mountain Road, where you walk in, it's just a counter with like maybe 8 seats and 2 tables of 2 four-tops, and the average customer isn't there. What? 20 minutes from order to leaving, less than a half hour for every customer. And the check average is small, but the turnover is huge. So I agree with you. I think a ramen bar would kill it down here. I think we're looking at what isn't everywhere. We don't. I mean, God bless the Italian restaurants. We don't need another Italian restaurant in this town. I mean, everybody wants to open a goddamn Italian restaurant, and because people love it. But, geez, I mean, how much? Al solito posto. The chef is mad at me. Why are you coming out to my restaurant? I said, oh yeah, because I want to eat, branzino again. Okay, I've only eaten it in like 19 restaurants in the last month, but no, you got to try my branzino and my pappardelle. And I'm like, sorry. When you eat out a lot, you get bored really fast, and this is where I think I'm not a usual diner that way.
Just on that question, have you eaten out? What's the longest stretch of meals you've had eating out in a row? Have you kept track of it ever?
Oh yeah. Well,
did you
back in the day, I would average at least 500 restaurant meals a year.
Wow.
Okay. So I would do 10 a week. I would on average 10 a week. So I don't think I've ever eaten more than 7 or 8 dinners in a row out. But I could easily do 7 in a row. These days, I'm getting up there in age, it's more like 4 or 5 a week that I eat out rather than 10 to 12. But I have eaten as many as 12, 13, 2 meals a day for a solid week.
Mm-hmm. So back to your question to me of what we need. Personally speaking, downtown, I would love a few more options for lunch that are a little more healthy. Doesn't have to. Right now, I love that Esther's Kitchen's open for lunch, but I mean, there's just a shortage of good sandwiches and good salads in downtown for lunch where you can walk to and grab and go. There's just nothing like that. You want pizza or you want tacos, you can get that everywhere and heavier meals, but for a casual
sandwiches,
salad,
you just hit it. Sandwich, a good sandwich, is the thing is a work of art, but I think the restaurateurs look at the price point and say, I can't make enough money serving it. I had an idea for a burger bar just down the street off of East Fremont, right next door to what's the little Mexican restaurant right there on right on the corner?
La Comida.
La Comida. Yeah. There was a little place open, and I actually spec'd it out at one point. I thought a place that just served burgers, fries, and good beers. There's a place called Father's Office in Santa Monica, California. Has been a huge hit for like 25 years.
Thought of it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's a bar that has a burger thing in back. The menu always has like 4 things on it. Burgers, like 2 different burgers and a couple sides and fries and one dessert every night. And there's a line out the door every day. Mm-hmm. But again, so that sort of thing. And along your lines, noodle bars, lunch places. We don't need more steakhouses. We don't need after-hours Italian restaurants slinging pasta at us. But I think we're doomed to. Every chef in town wants to do that. I think.
What in your mind is the celebrity chef craze done? Are we over it?
God bless. I hope so. Yeah. Man,
as a city, I mean, on the Strip and everywhere else.
I don't see it. Yeah, Jonathan. I don't see it coming back because no one's going to. After this pandemic, no one's going to pay Bobby Flay's prices for Bobby Flay to slap his name on the door. He doesn't give a shit about these restaurants. It's just a way for him to market himself. Same with Gordon Ramsay. Ramsay's still he probably has the most he has the most heft. He's got he swings the biggest bat of any of them right now.
By the way, good fish and chips downtown would be great.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Fish and chips, yes. Another thing, like a good sandwich, a work of art when it's done well, but people do it shitty, and then they think it's not that good. But, yeah, I think the celebrity chef, the guys that are here are going to hang on. I'm sure Bobby Flay's shopping his brand somewhere, but I don't see them bringing in chefs because nobody has the nobody has the name anymore. I mean, I think they've lost that cachet that they had 10 or 15 years ago. And who else can you think of? If you're going to bring in a celebrity chef, name one. There hasn't been a new one in 15 years.
Right, yeah.
So you were a judge on Top Chef Masters and Iron Chef America.
Several times, yeah.
What was that like?
That was great. You get treated like a big shot, limo, free hotel. They ask you, there's a little guy walking around behind you asking if you want something every 8 minutes. I mean, I guess this is what happens if you're a big – so I got the star treatment like a few times in New York. It was fun. Top Chef Masters was really fun because I got to sit in a room we did the finale for one season. I think it was season 3. And we were there for 2 days and just eating all this stuff. But they had the restaurant critics from Esquire, from back when these things still counted, back around 2012, 11, 12. Esquire, Vanity Fair, Francis Lamb was there. I think Ruth Reichel was there. All these heavyweights. And we were sitting around this table judging the food. That was a ton of fun. But Iron Chef America was the most fun because I got to go there 4 times and got 4 free trips to New York, and it was fun. Just watching how good they do it and how hard these chefs work and how hard Alton Brown works. It was a blast, and they really do make the food in 1 hour. It's the rules are really strictly enforced, and they don't make them anymore. They're still good. They're still rerunning some of my old. Every so often I'll get a text from somebody. Just saw you on Battle tilapia, which was one of mine. Yeah. Can you imagine eating like 15 dishes of tilapia?
No.
Oh God. Yeah, I did it. Combat pay. I deserve combat pay for that.
Would any of those chefs come and open restaurants? Vegas?
One of them now, these guys are like Garcia is in Philly. Most of these people, Solomanoff is a big guy in Philly. I just don't see them wanting to take the plunge here anymore, especially after the pandemic. We're going to see we're going to see a contraction here. Don't you agree? I mean, I don't know how you see it, Jonathan or Lisa, but I think there's going to be less restaurants in all the hotels. I don't think they're going to open. The Bellagio is no longer going to have 11 great restaurants in it. It's probably going to.
Why do you think that, though? Not because of the pandemic, but
I don't think people want to. I don't think people are going to pay for it coming out of the pandemic. I think there'll be less tourists. I think it's going to be 5 years before we get back to 40 million tourists.
I hope
again.
you're wrong.
I hope I am wrong too, but I think it'll be 5 years, and I don't think the appetite's going to be to throw down $150 a person for a meal. Coming out of this pandemic.
But I was talking to someone about it this morning, and there's only so many home-cooked meals you can eat. There's only so many Uber Eats you can eat. And then at some point, people are going to say, like, to hell with this, I'm going to Vegas, and I'm going to eat out every night. And it doesn't have to be necessarily – I think the buffets are done, okay?
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Agree.
I think the buffets are done from a sanitation perspective. That might take 5 years to come back.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
And lining up with people, 2 feet from everybody eating. Yeah.
And by the way, the businesses want the buffets to be done because they're loss leaders. So
they are.
So everyone's going to be happy that the buffets are done. I think across the board. But I don't know. I could see people. I mean, listen. I'll tell you this. Oscars has been doing surprisingly well, and the average check is not. It's about $70, $75, and yet we still have, 200, 250 people a night eating here. So it speaks to me that I think people do want to get back out.
And they have the money. You think they have the money?
Oh, I mean, if you think about, okay, there's people that have lost, there's also been a lot of stimulus money out there, but I think people that have not been able to travel, not been able to eat out, they've saved money. There might be more pent-up demand and disposable income coming than we expect.
Yeah, well, from your mouth to God's ears. Okay, I hope I'm a doomsayer about this. I've been saying this now for the whole year, and I always say with the little caveat, I hope I'm wrong.
But the caveat to what I said is, it will on the Strip especially. There's a lot of restaurants, and there's a lot of there's a lot of places for mouths to feed, and if those mouths come back, but you got to get to the 40 million number through conventions and big events. If those don't come back for a couple of years, then yes, there might be contraction on the restaurants. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as you say. In fact, we would like to believe and do believe that once Vegas opens, there'll be drive-in traffic and the restaurants will actually do well because people are sick of eating at home and ordering takeouts.
I know. Opinions are what you pay for them, but that's why I think downtown is poised for this big resurgence. I really do.
You're absolutely
because
right.
Downtown is a human-scaled place. The Strip is this giant hotels, that with, like I said, 11 restaurants, and this one 22 restaurants, 4,000 rooms. I mean, getting those giant whales back into the ocean again is a big deal. Downtown has a human scale to it, and I think you and Circa and the Arts District and all the places around here, and even the Smith Center with the buildings going on over there, is going to appeal to a smaller is better mentality. Not when it comes to like eating a good steak at Oscars as much, but just generally, this is a place I can relate to.
Right.
And I think the big strip is going to have a hard time, and so I'm more optimistic about downtown because I think this is where people are going to want to walk around and do things.
Well, and then along those lines, I went to You or Me. I went to Main Street Provisions. You can't get into Esther's Kitchen. Everywhere's busy. These restaurants are busy because people are starting to get out and they're saying, "I've had enough of this. I gotta live my life a little bit." And I do hope that happens. But I guess I'd love your opinion on. There's two big hotel casinos slated to open with a bunch of restaurants next year on the Strip.
And I have friends in some of them.
You got Resorts World and you got the Hard Rock, which will become the Virgin. Yeah. Is there anything those places could do to sort of entice you or wow you? I mean, what are they doing culinary-wise that would be of any interest?
Well, somebody told me that Mastro's is going into the Resorts World. Like I'm supposed to be impressed by Mastro's. That's like telling me Ruth's Chris is going into a place, Oh, wow, Mr. Chris, we're having Mastro's Steakhouse. Now, that may appeal to the Asian customer they're pitched to because they like predictability and name places. I mean, the branding is a huge thing in Asia. Anybody who's been there knows that. So maybe they think that will do it. But, I think what Resorts World can do is probably bring in some really high-toned Asian food, like Chinese food that we haven't seen in this town, or that are only available in some of the better restaurants or for some of the high rollers. So they may do that, and that'll get me interested. But I'm not interested in Mastro's or any chain Italian restaurant or a Bobby Flay Outpost.
What about Todd English Olives?
Oh. First of all, is he sober enough to open a restaurant? I mean, this guy has been a hot mess for at least a decade, okay? I wouldn't do business with Todd English if my life depended on it.
Wow. Okay.
So,
what is your favorite all-time restaurant in Vegas?
Or favorite meal, I guess. Did you have one?
Well, my favorite meal in Vegas would probably be about 10 years ago when Vegas Uncorked was in its heyday. In 2008, 9, 10, 11. I think it was 2010.
That was the event at Caesars.
Yeah,
right?
The event at Caesars. And it really, for about 4 or 5 years, until they sold it to Bon Appetit magazine, it was a big deal nationally. And then they sold out and it kind of lost its luster. But in 2010, the editor of Bon Appetit, who's now Barbara Fairchild, she's retired, but she became my friend. And she would come to town every year and we would talk. And she said, could you line up a dinner at Guy Savoy for us? So it was Alan Richmond, who was then he's won 13 James Beard Awards. He's like the most decorated food writer of the 20th century. He was there. He's my friend too. Barbara Fairchild, my wife. I think there was 3 other people. We got a private table at Guy Savoy. He was there. He brought his whole kitchen team in for the Bon Appetit Uncorked event, and we were just treated like kings and queens for like a 4-hour dinner. I mean, pumpkin soup and a giant pumpkin that you couldn't even put your arms around with white truffle shaved in it, an 8-pound line-caught wild turbot that he cooked in crust. He did a dish called livre à la royale.
So is this your favorite meal? Is Guy Savoy your favorite restaurant in Vegas?
Well, Guy Savoy is now my favorite restaurant in Las Vegas when I can afford to go there. But this is my favorite meal. So, and they pulled all these French things out, and I could go on and on. But it was one of these matchless things to have one of the greatest French chefs in the world serving you personally, the best ingredients with really serious food lovers and food writers. I mean, it was one of those golden nights that I'm not going to forget for a long time, ever, really. But so Guy Savoy is the only great restaurant that's open in Las Vegas right now. And I'd have to say that's still it because I'm a French food guy. Mm-hmm. My second favorite
Did you ever eat a comme ça?
Oh, yeah. I love comme ça.
So I knew that wasn't going to do well. When I heard comme ça was opening, I was very excited. And a lady I was talking to downtown said she ate dinner last night. I said, where'd you go? She said, to Comica. I said, excuse me?
Comica.
She said, Comica. I said, what's that?
You should have offered her a quesadilla.
She said the French restaurant at the Cosmopolitan says, comme ça.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, all these great French places are now closed. I don't think Robuchon's coming back. People disagree with me, but I don't think it's coming back because it's so expensive. But another great meal I've had was with Jose Andres at Bazaar Meat.
Okay.
I mean, having him in the room, I mean, if you've ever been around him, it's like, I mean, he has the attention span of a housefly, this guy. Okay. I mean, so he just flips from table to table. He's literally bringing buckets of caviar, and this is pre-COVID, of course, and spooning them into everybody's mouths and things. So Bizarre Meat gave me one of my greatest experiences here.
I do like his restaurant Haleo a lot. I'm a big fan of it.
Me too. I love Haleo, and the paella there is something to go out of your way for.
That's top 3 for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got to ask Lisa before I know we've been out doing this for a few minutes, but I want to know, as a younger person, where do you like to go eat?
Anywhere downtown. I love taking friends out here and like going to Latai and then walking down Fremont Street, showing them all the sites, showing them East Fremont. Just like where you can hop around.
The human scale I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right? Why is the Arts District so cool? Because you can go to a bar here, have a meal there, and go to another bar, all within a 3-block area.
Yeah, if there's like a fun bar next to the restaurant, that's a bonus.
So you mentioned the Arts District. There's a very controversial item going on right now. Someone's trying to open up a food truck park, basically, for lack of a better word, in the Arts District. All the downtown businesses that I've spoken to are vehemently opposed to it. There's 2 sides to this story. Where do you sit on it, I guess?
Well, I've said this before. It depends on the last person I spoke with. I think food trucks are great. They're very 2009 though. I mean, food trucks are a terrible way for restaurateur cooks to make a living. You work like a slave. If you're lucky, you bring home $400, $500 a week. I mean, it's a real tough way to make a living. People think they will be good for the Arts District because they will create foot traffic, but the people that go to the food trucks, they want to spend $5 and $10. And they don't mind standing up and eating food out of a paper cup and going, hey, I'm eating in a food truck. That was kind of hip in 2010. It's not so hip anymore. Food trucks, to me, they've made a big splash in places like Portland and Austin. I've been to those food truck parks. They're really more like almost like brick and mortar places. They're like 10 of them in a row or 15 and they seem to have a cachet there, but I don't think it's good for downtown. I think it's going to attract the wrong kind of crowd overall. But
overall, you're leaning on the.
I'm leaning against it because I'm in favor of the brick and mortar people. But then if the food truck guys come to me and go, "Oh, we're going to just create a huge buzz downtown," I think they're going to create the wrong kind of buzz, the same kind of buzz that damn First Friday does, which I think is just an abortion of a deal, which just brings a bunch of 15-year-old kids and people eating snow cones walking around,
right.
Okay? This is not what I think we need downtown.
I think the big thing, though, that gets me, and I know the people trying to do it as well, so I feel for them, but, nobody wanted to do food trucks in the Arts District 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Nobody, and we had this issue 10 years ago down in East Fremont when we started leasing up to Latai and La Comida and Commonwealth and all those guys that were putting a real investment into downtown, into these buildings. All of a sudden, the food trucks all wanted to be in East Fremont.
Yeah.
And the guys would say, they fought it as well. They said, well, it's not fair. We had to build out all the space and do all of this, and now somebody's going to come along onto our success and just say, well, here's a food truck. Under competing, and no one wants to admit it's about competition, but at the end of the day, like you said, if you can get something for $5 out of a food truck and stand around,
right,
you're going to do that and go sit instead of sitting in a restaurant. So I feel like if you want to create a destination food truck experience that's going to bring all these people to downtown, go somewhere where there isn't already 10, 12 new restaurants within the space of 3 blocks.
Like somebody said, there's all kinds of vacant lots out there. They don't want to do that, of course, and I'm not singling out any single food truck, but the food is not that good at these places. They're not that good. It's not that good. I mean, I know I'm a food snob. I'm a high-toned guy who wants to just eat fancy French food by Guy Savoy, but I've eaten in a lot of food trucks, and rarely have I eaten put the little plastic styrofoam thing up and gone, wow, I can't wait to get this again, okay? It's cheap. Why people like it? It gives the illusion of being a foodie, an illusion of being a food lover, and you can do it on the cheap and pretend you've done something cool. And I don't think it's that cool, and I don't think it's that good. Sorry, food truck guys.
Have you heard of this baked feta pasta trend on TikTok?
What is it?
There's this food sensation. You make baked feta pasta, and like Trader Joe's has been sold out of feta cheese for weeks now because of some people on TikTok.
This is all your generation that puts up with this crap, okay?
It actually looks delicious, and I would
But anybody who cooks does this. This is like a cooking fad to get big on TikTok for people who don't cook. Yo, you mean you can put cheese and melt it and melt it on you can melt cheese and put it on pasta? Wow. They just did it with a bunch of cherry tomatoes and made it look and it's yeah.
So what other trends are going on that you
well, don't ask me. Okay, I'm in my 60s. I'm the last guy to talk about trends, but food trends. What you see on TikTok and everything is not the food trends. Better pizza is a food trend. Good coffee is a food trend. Sooner or later,
cauliflower.
I think the great food trend that's happened in the last 10 years is everybody, including your generation, including the 20-year-olds, are real tuned into quality now. It's really they're very much paying attention to who's cooking the food and where it comes from. And that wasn't going on 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was paying attention to that, but I was talking to a really, really small audience. Now, everybody is a foodie, and I mean that in a good way. And that, you're worried. They're not buying canned things anymore. They're looking at where, whether it's free trade, or where the vegetables come from, how fresh they are, who the chef is, what his background is. This has been a huge revolution. And I
agree with you.
And I think it's helped restaurants, and it's driving the success of Oscars.
Better restaurants, better quality.
Better quality. Esther's Kitchen, Oscars, Circa across the street, whatever. We're eating better right now in the neighborhoods and everywhere in America, not just Las Vegas.
So what happens next for you? You obviously you did the book.
8 years, yeah.
8 years. The people don't have the attention span for anything now but pictures, it seems.
And video.
So how do you continue to evolve as a food critic, or do you? What comes next?
I'm not quite ready to ride out into the sunset yet. I keep my Eating Las Vegas thing going. It's a blog. It's at eatinglv.com. Just because I like to write. I like to write about food. If I have a good burger, at Oscars, I sit down and I go, I like to, it takes some time. Writing is hard work, but it's fun for me to write 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 words about something I really like. So I'm going to keep the blog going. I'm active on all the social media platforms. My editor.
What's your TikTok name?
John Curtas, JOHNCURTAS. I've got 3 TikToks. I'm not a they're so amateurish, they're ridiculous. Okay.
I haven't given it.
And I haven't set them to music yet, or me dancing in the background like you're supposed to on TikTok. Because who wants to see a fat white guy dance? Okay, fat old white guy.
You could go viral.
Okay, it could go viral if I was in my underwear, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Great.
But what's next? So
that's what's next.
That's what's next. That's what's next. John Curtas in his underwear on TikTok. Right. Thanks, Jonathan. You've inspired me.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming out to Oscars and trying the burger and saying that it's the best burger in town.
We're gonna do a steak off here. I'm gonna eat here, and I'm gonna eat same night. I'm gonna eat here and in Circa at Barry's. We're gonna do a steak off. I'm gonna bring 3 people. We're gonna do 2 in one night.
I'll join you. Sounds fun.
It'll be fun. It will be fun. Okay. Well, thank you all. Bon appetit to all. Santé.
You can stay up to date with John on Twitter at Eating Las Vegas. We'll be back again soon. But in the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends about On the Corner of Main Street. And of course, follow us on social. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at PlazaPod. And on Facebook, find us at Plaza Podcast. Or go right to the top and tweet Jonathan at Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time from right here on the corner of Main Street.